For almost 2 years, I drove for Uber. Looking back, the wear and tear I put on my car probably wasn't worth it. But at the time, I was in big trouble financially. Out of the blue, my wife served me with divorce papers. I'm sure there were signs, but I sure didn't see them coming. As a guy, I was just grinding as hard as I could to keep all the bills caught up. When it became clear that she was not interested in fixing anything, my household income was suddenly cut in half. After the lottery failed to come through for me, yet again, I assessed my situation. I had several things working for me. In the short term, I had a nice car, and I loved to drive. So the most obvious opportunity to look into was Uber. I'm not sure about right now, but at the time, Uber was still pretty good as a side hustle for someone like me. I went through the process and registered, and in a short time I was approved to be a driver. The first day I decided to give Uber a try was a little nerve-wracking. Did I really want all these strangers in my nice car? What if I got lost? What if my rider pissed me off? Could I boot him out right away? What if I pissed him or her off? How awkward was all this going to get? I hesitated. I actually wasn't sure if I could do this. To clear my head, I took a walk down to my mailbox. Miraculously, I saw several utility bills, which helped me to make up my mind right away. The first time I turned on the Uber app, I got into my car and I just kind of sat there. Less than a minute later, the unique pinging sound went off. I touched my screen to accept the ride, and just like that, I was off. It turned out that the app was pretty simple to use. You turn it on, and you just wait. When the pinging started, you could either accept the ride request or decline by just letting it go. If you accepted, a map immediately popped up to give you directions to find your rider. Once you pick up your rider, the map switched over to a destination map so you could see exactly where to go next. It was very easy and very simple. My very first Uber rider lived just a few blocks from my house. It turned out that this guy needed a lift to the airport. I pulled up and he was all set to go. We greeted each other politely, then we said nothing more. Just how I hoped it would be. All in all, I got him to the airport in just about 15 minutes and earned a nice $40 plus tip. Not too bad. The water bill was paid now. Before long, I was giving Uber rides every night after my regular job. And every Friday and Saturday night, right through the bar closing hours at 3 a.m. Originally, I had no plan or desire to taxi drunk people around. But once I tried it, I saw the significant pay rate increase for driving during those high demand hours. I was hooked. All in all, I considered myself lucky. With all of the bar rides that I gave to drunk people, no one ever got belligerent with me, and only 2 people threw up in my car. A hefty fee from Uber covered the detailing costs, and I actually came out a little bit ahead, both times. So what does all this have to do with a scary story for a YouTube channel? Well, let me tell you. Out of the hundreds of rides that I gave over my 2-year career, most of these rides were pretty unremarkable. However, there were 2 that still gives me chills if I think about them. A few months after I started driving, I was just getting used to working the bar crowd. It was after 1 a.m., and I happened to be near a large Indian casino. Suddenly, I got a ping from the casino. I picked up a very friendly young couple. At that moment, I realized that the rates in the area of the casino had jumped significantly. Often, rideshare apps will do this when there are events such as bar closings, or concerts, or football games. Demand goes way up, so they jack the rates up just to attract drivers to that area to meet the demands. This young couple I picked up explained that a really popular country music singer had just finished a concert at the casino. That explained the high demand. After about 10 minutes of driving, I delivered the young couple safely to their apartment. I checked the map and noticed that the casino was still in high demand. If I hurried, I could still squeeze in at least one high demand ride. So I hauled butt back to the casino. The fastest way back was a small rural road that cut through the middle of a wheat farm. I was feeling good, and I was excited. Even though it was nearly 2 a.m. now, I caught my second wind. I cranked up my music. I remember distinctly that I was listening to November Rain by Guns N' Roses. Right about when Slash walked out of that little church to launch into a solo, I saw something weird. The road I was driving on was a 2-lane country road. One lane was coming and the other one was going. There was a slim emergency shoulder which sloped into a ditch, filled with, ironically, November rainwater. My brights were on, and I was the only one on the road. And right there on the right-hand side, as clear as day, there was a man in a black t-shirt with cut-off sleeves and a dark mesh baseball cap was standing in that ditch. What the hell? Was that a guy standing in the water in the ditch at almost 2 a.m.? Does he need help? All these thoughts came into my mind. I didn't see any signs of a wreck or a broken down car. So as I pondered all of this, I must have gone about a quarter of a mile past this guy. I thought about how best to turn around and check on him. And suddenly, the exact same guy, and I mean the exact same guy, was in the ditch with that same blank look on his face, right ahead of me. What the hell again? That's right. I saw two identical guys standing in a water-filled ditch in late November at 2 a.m. on a backcountry road. All thoughts of stopping to help the guy fell out of my head. Suddenly my Uber app pinged with a ride request coming from the casino. The prospects of picking up a nice fare pushed out any fear that might have been creeping up on me. I drove on that backcountry road for a few more minutes before turning off. I fully expected to see that guy again, but I never did. I picked up my rider from the casino, dropped him off, then I bolted for home immediately afterwards. The whole thing was very unsettling, but I never considered quitting. After the second creepy ride, though, I did quit, and here's what happened. Once more, I was out late working the bar closing crowd. I had a great night, and I was in a really good mood. It was just after 3 a.m. and the bar crowd had dispersed. As I was leaving the downtown area, I was literally reaching to toggle my app off when a ride request pinged my phone. Let's do one more, I thought happily. What a mistake. I accepted the request. My rider was close by, which was good also. I looked at the map and realized that it was taking me to the hospital. As I got closer, I noticed that the pin drop took me to the end of the hospital's driveway. There, standing on the sidewalk, was a little old lady dressed in all white. At the same time, I thought nothing of it. She wasn't wearing a creepy nightgown or a hospital gown or anything like that. She was dressed in white pants and a white tank top. She looked like she was in her 50s or 60s, but she was one of those old ladies who like to dress like she was in her 20s. I pulled up to her and I said her name. Without so much as a hello or even a nod, she climbed into my car. I made a brief attempt to make some small talk, but all I received was silence. Unlike a lot of people, I am perfectly comfortable with silence. Soon, I was on the highway. I was following the directions provided by the map. Every few moments, I looked into my rearview mirror just to check on this lady. I always made it a habit to do this with all my riders, not just creepy old women at 3 a.m. It was dark, but since we were on the highway, every so often, we passed by a highway lamp. A flash of light would flood into the cabin of the car. As I looked in my mirror, sure enough, this old woman was being as creepy as possible. She was very thin, and she had pulled her knees up to her chest and was gently rocking back and forth. She had a Cheshire cat smile on her thin and gaunt face. Just imagine it. I'll give you a moment. Once I saw this, I can honestly say that I literally had one eye on the road and one eye on my rearview mirror. At that moment, I thought of the Meatloaf song. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. The map indicated that this woman's home was only about 15 minutes away. In my head, I thought, thank God. Yet, it was the longest 15-minute drive that I ever took. With about 7 minutes left in the drive, the woman began muttering to herself. I remember that it was 7 minutes because that's how closely I was tracking the time. What I could make out was,
"What's wrong with my dog? My dog just won't listen to me. Why won't he listen to me? Me, moop, moop, me."
for real, what the I could not get this ride over with quickly enough. Finally, we arrived at the destination on the GPS. I pulled up to the bottom of the driveway and politely said, "Here you go, ma'am. Thank you." This rider from hell made 0 attempts to exit. She continued to rock back and forth and just gently and quietly mumbled to herself, "Miss, we're at your house." I don't recall how long she sat there in my back seat, but I can assure you that it was long enough to make the entire situation even more awkward and uncomfortable than it already was. Finally, after a figurative eternity, the old lady opened her door and she stepped out of the car. The moment she cleared the car and I heard the door slam shut, I pulled away with quickness. However, literally within 2 seconds after I pulled away, I checked my mirror. The old woman was nowhere to be seen. Confused, I quickly pulled into a neighbor's driveway, and I drove back by her house. All of this took mere seconds. This old woman was not capable of running anywhere. Yet, she had vanished into thin air. I looked at the house, and all of the lights were off. This made no sense whatsoever. I drove sparingly for another couple of weeks, then I quit for good. Luckily, I obtained a much better paying job and could afford to quit driving. To this day, I still think about that old woman. She didn't look like a ghost. She looked as solid as any other person. But I think she might have been a ghost. The guy in the ditch, though, yeah, that son of a gun was definitely a ghost. Thanks for listening to my Uber ghost story. Most kids fear the dark. I know that as a kid I certainly did. Studies show that most kids grow out of this fear, and by the time they're an adult, they're mostly fine with being in a dark room. However, those same studies also show that about 11% of adults still fear the dark. And usually this persistent childhood fear lingers as a result of something traumatic that happened in the dark during childhood. I am an adult now, but I fear the dark, and this is why. When I was a kid, we lived in a weird house. I'm pretty sure it was haunted, but it's hard to say for sure now that it's been such a long time. Yet, there was one incident that I remember definitely happened. Like most nights, my little brothers and I sat on the floral print couch, watching sitcoms until bedtime. I must have been in the 4th or 5th grade at this time. It was in the 80s, and there was a sitcom called Head of the Class. Looking back, it wasn't really a great show, but for some reason, I really loved that show at the time. Around 8:30 at night, my brothers got tired and decided to go to bed. I was a little pissed because they knew that I was waiting for Head of the Class. Now, I was all alone. Screw it, I thought. I don't need them. So I decided that I would just stay up by myself. So of course, I did. At 9:30 my show concluded, and it was bedtime. Now let me paint the picture for you so you understand the layout of the house. We lived in a side-by-side duplex. When you come into the front door, you're immediately in the living room. Opposite the front door, there is a large archway which leads directly into the dining room. If you walk straight ahead, on the right side there's a regular-sized doorway that leads to the kitchen. On the left-hand side, there are stairs that lead up to where the 3 bedrooms and the only bathroom are located. When you get to the top of the stairs, if you turn left, there's one bedroom, my grandma's bedroom, with the only bathroom at the end of the hallway. And if you turn right, it leads to the remaining 2 bedrooms. My parents' bedroom was the first one to the right, and the bedroom that my siblings and I shared was at the end of the hallway. This explanation matters in just a minute. Remember, I'm the only one awake at this point, and I'm just a little kid. There's no way I'm going to walk through any of these rooms in the dark. The living room lights were on, so I don't know if other people did this as a kid, but I went to the dining room and I turned that light on. I went to the foot of the stairs and then I turned on the stairwell lights. The kitchen light was off because I didn't need to go over there. In fact, nobody had been over there since dinner. I turned around and I returned to the living room. I turned off the TV first. Then I turned off the living room lights. I sprinted to the dining room and I turned off those lights. Then I sprinted up the well-lit stairs. At the top of the stairs, I turned on the hallway lights before turning off the lights in the stairwell. I turned right and I went to my bedroom. I put on my sleeping shorts. I remember running back down the hallway to use the bathroom. To get from my bedroom to the bathroom, I had to walk by the stairs. I glanced downstairs and all the lights were off. I went to the bathroom and I did my business. When I finished up, I quickly washed my hands, dried them on the towel, and turned the bathroom lights off. As I walked down the hallway, when I got to the stairs, my little heart started racing. Holy crap. All of the lights were on downstairs, at least from what I could see. I thought for a minute. Did someone wake up? I reasoned to myself, and I wondered. Nope. Grandma's door was closed. My parents' door was closed. My dad worked nights, and my mom was asleep with my baby sister. I looked down the hallway, and I saw that my door was cracked open, but I could hear both of my little brothers sleeping. Oh no. Do I go downstairs where the devil is clearly waiting for me tonight? I didn't want to, but if my dad comes home to find all the lights on, I'm going to be in big trouble, I replied to myself in my head. And at that age, I was actually a little more afraid of my dad than I was of the devil. I shouted an expletive in my head, and with a deep breath, I went downstairs. Sure enough, every single light was on. Even the TV was on. Even the kitchen light was on, and I didn't even go over there. I remember saying, "Hello?" I waited and I waited, but there was no reply. I don't know if anyone else did this as a kid, but when I got scared, I would sing a song that I knew really well. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. None of this made sense. I know I turned off all the lights. Had a very shiny nose. And even to this day, I know I did. So I did what kids do. I summoned up super speed, and I raced through the house. I went from room to room, turning off all the lights, including the TV. I raced back up the stairs, taking 3 steps at a time. And if you ever saw him... Then at the top of the stairs, when I was back in the safety of the glowing hallway lights, I did something kind of stupid. I looked over my shoulder. At the bottom of the stairs, right where the dark and the light from the stairs met, I saw a shadow person. It was just standing there. It was shaped like a man, but it had no features. It was just blackness. At that moment, I actually forgot the rest of the lyrics to the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer song. I ran down the hallway to my bed. My brothers were still sound asleep. I turned off the lights in the bedroom, and I shook in fear underneath my blanket. I actually waited forever for that thing to come up the stairs and enter into my room to get me. I was sweating, and I was breathing heavily. I waited, and I waited, and I waited, but that shadow thing never came up. At some point, I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was grateful to be alive. I made my way down to the kitchen. Immediately, I got yelled at for leaving all the lights on. I was confused, but apparently, when my dad got home from work, the lower part of the house was lit up like a Christmas tree, and he was not happy. He asked my little brothers who left the lights on, and they promptly threw me under the bus since I was the last one awake. I received a nice lecture about turning off the lights and helping to save money as I enjoyed my Apple Jacks that morning. I just had to sit there and take it. There was no way my father was going to believe what actually happened. So after all that, after risking my life to turn off all the lights, that shadow thing still went back and turned on all the lights and got me in trouble anyways. And this is why I am afraid of the dark.